Dat to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and week 11 is upon us as our New Orleans Saints take on the Cleveland Browns this Sunday in their Caesars Superdome. This will be the second game under the new interim head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Darren Rizzi, coming off a 20-17 victory against the Atlanta Falcons last Sunday and breaking that dreaded 7-game losing streak that we were on, which ultimately got our head coach, Dennis Allen, fired. Just turmoil. Complete turmoil that turned into a bright, shiny day. For those of us here in New Orleans, we know how that is. You know, we've been through more hurricanes and thunderstorms, or tropical storms, I should say, that we can count. And it's always dreaded. It looks apocalyptic when those storms hit. But the day after, it be the most beautiful day. You ever realize that the air is a little cooler, the humidity is low, the ground is saturated and all that, but the sky is beautiful. It is like a sign from God himself saying that it's all right. You're going to be all right. And that's what the Saints went through this past 7 weeks. You know, it was a Katrina level event. Betsy even, Camille, all those wrapped up in one. And we got through it, and it's sunny, it's bright, it's cooler weather, and here we are. Now, with all that said, Saints, it's highly unlikely. I don't want to be the pin that bursts your bubble, but it's highly unlikely that the New Orleans Saints will so-called run the table and salvage this season that was pretty much dead and gone. I don't see that happening. You know, I don't see the Saints making this dramatic shift and get back into the playoff picture. Now, crazier things have happened, and especially in the NFC South, where the Saints are only 2 games behind the Atlanta Falcons, who we just beat. And so that's encouraging, but at the same time, it's like, do we really want that? Do we really want to get into playoffs and run up against a Detroit Lions who on their worst day? You seen the Detroit Lions the other night when they played, who that was they played? I can't even remember now, but Jared Goff threw about 30 intercepts in that game, but 5 to be more accurate. I mean, they looked horrible, but for some strange reason, they still won that game. It's amazing to me. It's like they just have it. This is their year. It's like they're destined, and they do everything right, with the exception of Sunday. But even with that, they still managed to win that game. And a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, right, who we played earlier this season, played them pretty tough, had them, but let it slip away. But this is a different Philadelphia Eagles team than we played in week, what that was, 3, 4, one of them. Yeah, so do we want to go up against those fellas in the playoffs, or 49ers, or Minnesota Vikings, teams of that ilk? I don't know. I'd rather just come to grips with this is a kind of a lost season than making this historic run, get in the playoffs and get embarrassed. I think that would hurt worse. Of course, that's just me. I'm saying that now. But if the Saints were to pull that off, of course, I'm going to be running around here with my shirt off, disgusting all my neighbors and, and screaming at the top of my lungs, who that? So it's weird. I'm kind of straddling the fence here with this, but it's only one game. It's only one game. What are we going to do in week 2 under this new leadership, under this new attitude, under this new regime that is the Darren Rizzi era of the New Orleans Saints. But before we get to all of that, before we even get to talk about playoffs and all this here, we got to get past the Cleveland Browns. We got to get past the return of Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston took over as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns just a couple of weeks ago when their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, went down with a torn ACL, I believe. He's out for the season. And don't it seem like decades ago that we were this close to getting Deshaun Watson? we almost got him. And judging by how he looked in Cleveland these past few years, I'm glad we didn't get him. And I was one of the ones who was cheering on getting him. I mean, think about it. Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans was electric, man. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league during that time. But you know, with all of the accusations and so on that came down upon him, it was a less attractive pickup for any team. But everybody recognized the talent. Everybody, especially the Cleveland Browns, who gave this young man $230 million guaranteed. And so that was the deciding factor. I wouldn't have picked New Orleans either. And I am a who dat. I would have went to Cleveland. But yeah, he has not looked like any ounce of what he was in Houston. Now, granted, he missed the whole year because of the suspension, and that offensive line is not the greatest offensive line in the world, but that's no excuse. It's no excuse for how he looked. But we're not worried about Deshaun Watson right now. We're worried about Jameis Winston. What Jameis Winston are we going to get this Sunday in the Dome? Are we going to get Jameis Winston that just picked apart the Baltimore Ravens defense a couple of weeks ago? I mean, destroyed Baltimore. And then came right back the very next week against, man, boy, my memory is not working today. But the very next week, he looked like the old Jameis Winston. You know, feast or famine, Jameis Winston. You know, so I don't know. Now, he's highly motivated. I can tell you that much. I would be a team that pretty much threw him to the side. Said, nah, we good. We're going to go with Derek Carr. And you look at their numbers, put their numbers side by side, they're the same quarterback. And you could have kept Jameis Winston cheaper. He would have been cheaper than what you paying Derek Carr. And I think the team responded to Jameis Winston. He was somewhat of a leader. Well, I don't know if a leader is the right adjective for him, but he definitely was a team favorite. You know, everybody liked him. And he's a cool dude. If you ever listen to his interviews and stuff like that, he's like the perfect teammate. Everybody loves playing with him. And I was hurt when they let him go because he never really got a fair shake here in New Orleans. You remember when he first came here, of course, he was behind Drew Brees, which is cool. That's perfect. He came in, he had some good games when Drew Brees went down. And the year Drew Brees retired, he was named the starter. Well, first and foremost, he was in a quarterback competition with Taysom Hill in camp, which was ridiculous. Like, come on, Taysom, really? You really put him in a quarterback competition with Taysom Hill. And I love Taysom Hill, but let's be real. But in any event, cooler heads prevailed. He became the starter. Had some decent games. He demolished the Green Bay Packers, I think, in his first game as the starter. He beat Atlanta. It was another game he had. It was pretty good. And then he got hurt. Actually, he got hurt in that Atlanta game. And from there, it was over. You know, he could never shake right. He shake back right. And I think I think that was ultimately what sent Sean Payton out the door, because you didn't have Jameis Winston, and he was frustrated. He was frustrated, just like he's frustrated now in Denver with Bo Nix. But it is what it is. But when Sean Payton left, you had Dennis Allen, and Dennis Allen clearly was not a Jameis Winston guy. That's when we was going after Deshaun Watson. That fell through. So all right, well, I guess we'll go with Winston. They brought in Andy Dalton, and as soon as Jameis Winston stumped his toe, they put Andy Dalton in and Trevor Siemian, and he never got a chance. Then they brought in Derek Carr, and they still hanging on to Jameis Winston, playing with this guy, playing with his emotions. The most telling one was that the Tampa Bay game when Derek Carr got hurt the week before, and he didn't practice all week. So Jameis Winston worked with the ones. He practiced all week going up against Tampa Bay, his former team, another team that threw him to the side. And he was all up for that game. And Saturday, the day before the game, they announced Derek Carr was the starter. And from that moment on, it was like, whatever. He threw up his hands, like, whatever. And Derek Carr went out in that game and looked like hot garbage. And they put in Jameis Winston at the end of the game. And Jameis Winston, he just was throwing balls up. I think he threw a pick, probably two, I don't remember. But he didn't care at that point. He didn't care. One, we were losing big, so that was part of the reason. But man, forget it. Y'all gonna put me in at the end. But anyways, yeah, he's coming back with this Cleveland Brown team, who's 2-7. Not too far off. They just coming off a bye. This is the first time they're linking up, these two teams, since 2022 in that Christmas Eve game. Y'all remember it was, I think, the coldest game in Saints history when they went to Cleveland. I think temperatures were like, I don't know, something below. It was ridiculous. It was like playing on concrete. Everything was frozen, and I felt bad for him. It was a hard game to watch, but the Saints won that game, I think 13-6 or something like that. And that is pretty much par for the course when the Saints meet the Browns. 4 out of the last 5 times these teams have played, they were decided by 7 points or less. And so that just goes to show you that these two teams always play each other pretty tight, and it usually comes down to the last possession of the game, or definitely the last quarter of the game. Going around the NFC South, the Saints are 4-7. I wish we were 7-3. We are 4-7 right now, third in the division, just above the Carolina Panthers, who share the 3-7 record, but we swept them, so we got that edge over them. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a game ahead of us at 4-6, and the Atlanta Falcons are 6-4 currently right now. Now, this Sunday, the Atlanta Falcons will travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. We know that Sean Payton knows Atlanta, and he pretty much owns Atlanta, so there's an opportunity there if Denver can get the job done. Carolina and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on a bye this week. So, yes, this is a opportunity for all of us who are wishing, hoping, and praying that the Saints make a turn for the better. This is an opportunity to get some headway in the division. Let's go over the injury report going into Sunday's matchup against the Cleveland Browns. We have some really good news when it comes to the injury report. I mean, not great, but some really good news. We might as well start off with the big one, and that is center Erik McCoy will be returning this week. He is listed as questionable, but he was a full participant, and he will be activated for this Sunday's matchup. We do have 2 players that have been ruled out this week, and that is guard Lucas Patrick with the ankle injury. He has been ruled out, and running back Jamal Williams with the groin, he has been ruled out as well. I'm still trying to figure out where that groin injury happened. It had to happen in practice because I don't recall him getting hurt during a game. But I could be wrong. And now we do have a plethora of questionables this week. That don't mean that they're not playing, but it also doesn't mean that they will be playing. So we will have to wait and see. Linebacker Pete Warner, hand injury, he is questionable. Safety JT Gray, hip, questionable. Safety Jordan Houghton, who I was worried about after Sunday's game because he took a shot and he laid down on the field for a second there with a shoulder injury, but he was a full participant this week. Cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry, hamstring, he is questionable. Cedric Wilson Jr. at shoulder, he is also questionable, and linebacker Newface Sewell, knee, he is questionable for this Sunday's matchup as well. Season leaders for both teams so far throughout the first 11 weeks of the season, starting with the Cleveland Browns. Passing is Deshaun Watson, who is on IR currently, but he is still the leading passer. 137 completions off of 216 attempts. 1,148 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. For the New Orleans Saints is Derek Carr, 124 over 184, 1,494 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Leading rushers for both teams. We know that Nick Chubb has been hurt this whole season. I don't think he's played yet. Watch he play Sunday, which will blow my mind. But Ford is their leading rusher, 52 carries, 269 yards, and 1 touchdown. For the New Orleans Saints is, of course, the all-time leading rusher in Saints history, Mr. Alvin Kamara, 167 carries, 715 yards rushing, and 6 touchdowns. Leading receiver for both squads, the Cleveland Browns leading receiver is Judy, 33 catches, 418 yards, 1 touchdown. For the New Orleans Saints, get this, is Alvin Kamara with 51 catches, 421 yards, and 1 touchdown. Yeah. That tells you everything you need to know about the Saints woes this season. I mean, it's not a shock because what other receiver do we have? All our receivers are hurt. But I don't expect that to hold the entire year. Season rankings so far. These are the league rankings for both teams in all the categories. Starting with the record, Saints are 3-7, Browns are 2-7. Scoring average, Saints are ranked 16th, the Browns are 29th. Opponent scoring average, Saints 24th in the league, Browns 21st in the league. Total offense, Saints are 16th, which is not bad, which is actually kind of shocking. We are the 16th ranked offense in the league. The Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, are 31st. 31st in the league in total offense. Rushing, Saints are 13th, Browns are 28th. Passing, Saints are 16th, Browns 28th. Total defense, Saints, they're 28th in total defense. Browns are 16th. Rushing defense, Saints are 27th, Browns are 14th. Passing defense, Saints are 29th, Browns are 13th. Turnover margin, Saints are 9th in the league with a +4 in turnover margin, whereas the Cleveland Browns are 28th in the league, -7. That is crazy. Keys to victory for this Sunday's matchup against the Browns. I think the Saints, on paper, should beat them. But on paper, the Saints should be 7-3. So that's not saying much. But the Saints have an opportunity to win this game, and I think they can win this game. I don't know if they will or not, but one of the keys to accomplishing that goal, neutralize Myles Garrett on defense. Myles Garrett is a game disruptor. Myles Garrett would turn the tide on any offense if he gets into his groove, if he gets into that gear, and he will disrupt this Saints offense, no matter what they're trying to do, pass or run. So neutralize him to whereas the Saints can take advantage of some of those holes on defense that the Cleveland Browns have on defense. And you know, I say it week to week, every single week, and I sound like a broken record, but it's the God's honest truth. You have to run the ball. Run the ball to set up everything else. Perfect example was last week. Last week against the Atlanta Falcons is the blueprint for every single game. You don't have to change it depending on your opponent. Let your opponent make you change it, make you adjust, and which is not a strong suit for the New Orleans Saints currently, but continue to run the ball. I mean, they ran the ball down the Atlanta Falcons' throat. And when it was time to take a shot, they took a shot and it worked. And so yes, run the ball and run it often. You utilize not only Alvin Kamara, because you're gonna run him to death, but also use Jordan Mims. I don't know, I don't know what to say about this running back situation because we do have a problem at running back. We have a problem with Jamal Williams. We have a problem with Kendre Miller. These guys cannot get on the field. Now, even when Jamal Williams is healthy, he can't get on the field. So I don't know what is going on in this running back room. But yeah, use this two-headed monster or three-headed, I should say. Let me correct myself. Three-headed with Taysom Hill. They were using Taysom Hill very well in the first half against Atlanta, and in the second half he disappeared. Why? Why? Use him. I don't get it. Now, granted, him in the game telegraphs everything you're gonna do. It does, but Taysom Hill is so skilled, so strong. It's still successful regardless. He is successful. Yeah, use him more, especially here, especially when you're trying to neutralize a pass rusher of the ilk of a Myles Garrett. Run Taysom Hill down his throat. Let's see that. Let's see that battle rage on the field. Defensively is going to be a little tough. And the reason it's going to be tough, we know Jameis. Even before he was a Saint, when he was in Tampa. We know how he is. And especially when he was here, you know his tendencies. You know what he likes to do. Jameis Winston is a gunslinger. And Jameis Winston is going to go down fighting. He's going to go down in a blaze of glory. It doesn't matter. But we got to be on our P's and Q's. We have to be prepared for Jameis Winston to sling that ball down the field 40, 50 times a game if need be. And so the secondary needs to be on point. And I'm looking at you, Alontae Taylor. Last week, we kind of glanced over it because we won the game. And it's been so long since we won a game, we haven't really touched in on some of the it was a lot of problems in that game. One of them being Alontae Taylor doing his absolute best. I mean, absolute best Paulson Adebo impression this last Sunday. I think he had, 3 pass interference calls? I mean, come on, man. And you didn't have to do it. That's what made it so bad. You didn't have to do it. But yeah, we got to clean that up. In the words of our former coach, Dennis Allen, we got to clean that stuff up. But anyways, yeah, I think the Saints will come out victorious in this game. If they come out inspired like they did last week, the sky's the limit. This is a team that is hungry to win, and they showed it last week. Now, I know about the interim head coach kind of jolt of adrenaline that every team gets when they get a new head coach in, when the former coach they had wasn't clicking. I know how all that works. Team comes out inspired for about 2 weeks, and then reality sets in and they go back to trash. I know how it works, but this is a team that's, no pun intended, built different. They're built different. They are this is a team full of veterans, to our detriment in some instances, because we got a lot of old players on the team. A bunch of old players, but they know better. This coaching staff been around. The only thing missing, the only thing different is the head coach. That's it. Everybody else has been here. Everybody else knows their role. Uh so I think that this team, they can do something special. I ain't saying win the division, go to the playoffs, but I mean, make the rest of this season respectable. Don't look like one of these trash teams in the NFL that we were looking at one point this season. And I say one point this season, 2 weeks ago, we looked like the worst team in football because we lost to the worst team in football. And so, let's dig ourselves out of that. And then we can talk about trying to do whatever. But that's my thoughts on the Saints matchup against the Cleveland Browns this Sunday in the Dome, 12 noon. I'm kind of excited now. I was thinking this week, once the excitement kind of wore down from the win, I'll say around Tuesday, Wednesday, I started getting excited again because I was checked out. I was to the point I didn't care to watch the game. Didn't care. Could care less. And, after last week, after the events of the week prior when we fired Dennis Allen, something that I thought would never happen, they did it. Team came out, completely changed their vibe. Didn't think that was possible, but they did it, and beat our hated rivals. Something that I wasn't expecting to happen, but they did it. I was excited, and I'm excited moving forward. I'm still on the fence on, should we tank or shouldn't we tank? I'm honestly on the fence with that. But the who that in me just won't let me just give up the season. It won't let me. But it's all good. I would love to know, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen this Sunday versus the Browns? Do you think the Saints will make it 2 in a row this Sunday? Or do you think Jameis Winston will return to the Dome and get his revenge? I would love to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube, people. Like this video, share this video, comment on this video, show the love and spread the love. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol podcast here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this preview of the Saints versus the Browns this Sunday, week 11 of the NFL football season. Be on the lookout for the review, the recap and reaction to the Saints' victory against the Browns this Sunday after the game. Until then, I'm going to be screaming, "Who dat?"